People are still trickling in here, but we wanted to get just the initial reactions. WWDC, the keynote really just ended just minutes ago. So there was a lot that we heard today, a lot of really great things, maybe some missed expectations. So I wanted to bring everybody together. We got all the experts, the geniuses here at Bitrise to join myself to talk about some of the announcements at WWDC. So we'll go ahead and just kind of work through this as a recap kind of chronologically. And I'm just going to throw this over to you all to start chatting about it. But we started in iOS 16. And there's a lot of really cool things that they announced in iOS 16. I think something pretty familiar is they seem to be tweaking the lock screen. That seems to be a common theme kind of years past for WWDC. But, you know, between the lock screen and some of the other updates, what were some of the favorite things that you guys saw? And I'll just kind of open it up to everybody.
For me, my favorite thing I saw on the lock screen was the like live notifications. I've always felt that notifications have become like kind of antiquated over the years, and nobody can get them quite right. And I feel like this is kind of what we want, right? Is a live feed on the home screen. It's like the NBA was a perfect example. I could see so many different applications for that.
Yeah, just to double down on that, like I think the way people use notifications now, especially in apps, is like it's almost like a state machine. So like say you're waiting for an Uber, it's going to tell you who's coming, when you can expect them, when they're almost there, and all those things start to queue up on your lock screen to the point where it's kind of messy. And say you're ordering dinner at the same time as well, trying to beat it home. You got two different threads you're trying to keep up with just like one spot to look at each thing and view sort of the updates. I don't know. I think that's going to change the way a lot of apps work right now.
I'm waiting for a moment when I get there. So like I always have too many notifications. So I'm waiting for a solution which will make me not ignore all of my notifications. So like I'm really looking forward to seeing that solution. Maybe that solves that problem.
True. Because like I didn't catch the full focus modes, but like maybe that's part of that, right? Which is like you get focus for work stuff during work time.
Yeah, I think it distinguishes between the different notifications, the sources of the notifications.
I thought the really interesting part there was like that they opened it up for developers, because normally the first year when these things drop, you have to kind of just accept it as a black box. So I'd be interested to see like what you're actually able to put in play, sort of like when this operating system, becomes live in the fall.
Yeah, it's interesting too. I thought that just in general, it seemed like they were really heavy on emphasizing APIs for everything that they would announce. They were really big on like, and there's a developer API essentially for whatever this is. That seemed to be pretty consistent theme, like as we move throughout the keynote, like every new, feature functionality that they like the live activities API was one of them. With the notifications, we saw focus filters as we saw focus, like that's got an API. I thought that was really interesting, where there's this very dev centric focus on, hey, here's something new, instead of giving it all this time to really flesh this out. You guys can jump right in as well. I thought that was interesting.
I remember last year on Clubhouse, Zuckerberg joined one conversation and he was bashing Apple for restricting many of the APIs, and maybe they got the message and try to emphasize it, or at least look more developer friendly or be more developer friendly.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of times you'll see that too, like only some of the big shops will get access to stuff. And it's like, okay, that's great. Thanks guys. But the indie devs have to wait like a year to adopt, so hopefully they're trying to drive that. I think that's going to be super important for the community.
I think another great thing in here is the flashlight directly on the iPhone. I don't know how many times late at night I'm just getting out to either like, walk back to bed or run an errand or something, and you just need quick access to that. So saving me those two swipes is gonna be great.
I'm trying to think, like I'm kind of looking through some notes that I took here. I'm curious though, what was and if you guys can come up with one, like what was a favorite feature that came out of iOS 16? So like that whole group, what was one of your guys' favorite features?
Oh, live text API looks like a good one too. I always wanted to do, I just got back from a conference, and like one of the things I always wanted was like you always see people at the conference and they have their phones up and they're taking a picture of a slide with like a link in it, Like I just wanted to like open up a tab set and just start clicking links like from the camera. So I can totally see good applications for that.
Yeah, kind of with that too. I'd forgotten that they have the live text for the video, like the video integration to be able to do it.
Yeah.
That was really cool. I thought that was really neat to be able to see a video and then be able to go frame by frame and then take that out of there as well. Because just the exact example where you're like taking a video, something, you know, and then maybe you got to dictate afterwards or pull that stuff out manually, but then to be able to go through that. And then that was another one where they dropped an API for developers to be able to integrate that as well. I thought that was pretty fascinating.
I also felt like maybe some of that is like a precursor to everyone's talking about like AR, VR headset, like maybe some of this OCR character recognition sort of lays the groundwork for a future update. Maybe, you know, like one of those mid-cycle updates like next March or next WWDC, we start seeing, you know, new devices coming out with these capabilities.
You know, they usually have a hardware event in September, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they bought World Lens, right? Who did the real-time augmented reality translation stuff. I built a similar app, but it was super slow because like Tesseract OCR only works on the CPU. So the company that actually built it, they shifted all the OCR over to the GPU, and that's how they could get it to work so fast. Pretty cool app though. And then they acquired Mataio for AR as well. We were partnering with them in SAP when they got acquired, and they basically just shut everything down, and that became the AR SDK. Actually, I bumped into the guy, the CEO of Mataio, on my way back from Munich, which is crazy. But yeah, it's definitely in the makings, right? That headset is coming out soon. The lack of M2 is what killed me, though. I think Arpad has also got a tear in his eye.
Yeah, we should just jump directly into that too, because I thought that was kind of, yeah, it was something that you were excited about at first, but then once you neared the end of the announcement, realizing that you wouldn't get the minis with the M2. I'm curious what you guys' thoughts are on that.
I think it's just the start of drip feeding, and then it probably comes in the next cycle or half a cycle.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I mean, on the desktop side, we have the Mac Studio with pretty good performance. I don't think they will drop anything in minis.
They're dropping some pretty amazing numbers, and I'm curious, like, it's 20 billion transistors on the new M2. I was curious what some of your guys' thoughts are on that. I mean, I just kind of harken back to 10 years ago when we're thinking of some of the hardware and like what were introduced now. I mean, they tried to get, you know, more into, it sounded like they put quite an emphasis on gaming, you know, quite an emphasis on, you know, multi-device and something like that. But I was curious what you thought about just the move to M2, just in general, you know, regardless of some of the deficiencies in it, just in general, like, you know, I mean, they like the MacBook Air, you know, and some of the hardware capabilities on the new M2 MacBook Air with like the, what is it, the MagSafe, they brought the head jack or the headphone jack back in as well. Russell, I know you pointed that out. I was curious what you thought about the hardware that was introduced. You know, what you thought about that now.
I think we should definitely address the courage it takes to bring the headphone jack back after publicly taking it out. But
personally would have liked to have seen more IO on the different MacBooks that they showed, because like that was one of the restrictions that was originally on the M1 was you could only have 2 Thunderbolt ports. And so it didn't really show off if you can have more than that on like M2, which I don't know. It'll just be interesting to see if that actually changed or not, or if it's still restrictive.
We should mention the courage with which they just dropped that laptop. Like my stomach just flinched. Like that's gonna break. So.
Yeah, that was pretty scary. But yeah, I think to your point, like they're probably reserving all the high-end IO for like the pro models, you know, and that's going to be the differentiator. I think that'd be my guess.
I hope.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Because like your different network adapters and things like that. I mean, those are all things that on M1 were very restrictive, because you went from the 2018 model of a Mac Mini that had 4 Thunderbolt ports on the back or USB Type 3. And then suddenly you go to a 2 and back to gigabit instead of 10 gigabit. And like those were some large restrictions. So I really hope that M2 has the capability of that. And when they release more information on it, it'll be interesting to see. But right now the IO is still concerned, like, because I don't know, Thunderbolt just, or not Thunderbolt, the MagSafe adapter just circumvents any of the onboard stuff. It's just a charging port. So
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, was it just two USB-C ports on the side? I didn't see. Is that what it looked like for both of the
At least
machines?
on the Air, I didn't see on the Pro.
The other thing I'd be curious about are the things that they didn't say as well with like external display support. So like in the M1, so I currently have a 13-inch M1. One of the things that I didn't know before I got it was that it only supports one external monitor. Otherwise, what you have to do is you have to buy external, like some kind of external hub that comes with, like I use, I think it's DisplayLink or something like that, Hyperdrive or something, and you basically have to hook that up in order to have multiple displays. And the 14-inch and the 16-inch, it allows you to have multiple displays. But I guess it's that specific scenario doesn't necessarily matter. Is that it's like what you're saying is that, Nate, like what are they not saying? What details are we not seeing that you end up a month from now, whenever it comes out, or I think it's a month from now or so, like whenever it comes out, that you can be able to use it. So that'll be interesting, I think.
Yeah, I think you guys said that it was already listed online, so I guess I'll go read the specifications and see what it says for external display support.
Yeah, as I said, it's pretty weird. Why did they bring back the touch bar? I mean, I skipped the WWDC now because I forgot it was going. But were there any words like why on the touch bar front?
So yeah, so that Apple, that WatchOS 9. I don't know how much you all are into the wearables and kind of keeping up with some of that stuff, but I think for me, probably the workout stuff I think was fascinating. They've got that new AFib. Kind of tracking AFibulation. I thought that some of the increased metrics from the workout app were nice. I mean, what they can do from the internal sensors or just the sensors on that device, I thought was pretty amazing. Just is something, and we were even talking about, what other apps this or, what other tech this might eat into as they, start to innovate a little bit more. I was curious what you guys thought about, some of the watch updates, not necessarily just the workout app, but, they spent a decent amount of time actually talking about WatchOS 9 and some of the updates that they had in there between. There was the workout stuff. They had, they talked a little bit about the sleep app. Russell, you brought up a good point in our chat, which was, when are you going to charge that thing? If you're, you got all these updates between a workout and, your daily usages with the different watch faces and stuff like that, to being able to track more on sleep and, specifically the sleep modes and, what is, when do you charge that thing? But I'm curious what you guys thought about, then there was like medication tracking and stuff like that. It seemed like they unveiled a decent amount, mostly in existing applications with the WatchOS update, WatchOS 9.
I honestly find the sleep tracking quite interesting. That would make me consider wearing something during sleep, which is like, I don't know. It's Apple Watch is quite big to sleep in it, isn't it? So like, I don't know, but it's interesting. It would be interesting to see all that statistics about my sleeping habits, definitely. Does anybody like sleep in that? Not yet. Okay.
I have maybe like twice ever, and it's the most awkward thing to me because it's just big. I will say, as they continue to develop these watches, like when they went from this version 6 to version 7, they increased the size again of the screen. And so I haven't bought that one yet, but I've debated moving down to the smaller size to just like make myself get used to it for that kind of purpose. But I use it for working out and stuff like that pretty regularly, and I really like being able to see that information. But when it came to sleeping, it just, I don't know. I don't know if I could do it where I just sleep with it on. But, and real quick side note, I went and looked on their site. Their display says that it only supports one external display with up to 6K resolution at 60 hertz. So,
but yeah, I'm kind of the same way with the sleeping. I think I've tried it a few times, but the problem I always ran into is that the watch died because the next day I just didn't. It was out of routine of when I would charge it, because that's whenever I do it. It's like right before I go to sleep, it just got one of those kind of put your phone on, you put your AirPods, you put your watch on. And when I'm thrown off of that, it's like I wake up and then, halfway through the day, it's like, you've got 10%. And then I'm just like, I'll just charge it tonight.
Oh, there's a solution for that. You have to have 2 watches. There you go.
Nailed it.
Man,
It is interesting.
this is like an Apple advertisement. Now you need 2 watches. Like go out there and
There you go. I'm a product
2
marketer. Did you know that?
Now you can use your old iPhone to just put on top of your computer and your new iPhone to put in your pocket.
Exactly.
For the sleep tracking, I used to use an app called Sleep Cycle, and that's something where like it is awkward to kind of have something on your wrist. And I think that's when most watch wearers do take their watches off. And this thing used to be when the iPhone had the accelerometer, you would put it upside down on your like under your pillow, and it would detect based on how you rolled around at night what your sleep quality was. So it's just always interesting because people always mention, how many startup ideas did Apple consume, this year? And that was one of the few apps back in the day where I actually paid the $1 for. And I was like, this is worth the $1, definitely.
I did that and it worked great until I got a memory foam mattress, and then it wasn't great anymore because it didn't move.
And also for sleep tracking, I think watches track your heart rate and other things too. So it's great to have something under your pillow, but for more accurate results, you definitely need it on your wrist or somewhere, wearing it somewhere.
I feel like the heart, what is it, the AFib detection thing? I think that's really great, to see. And like you hear some of those stories, I think maybe that was like last WWDC where people are like, this saved my life, this made me go to the doctor. And I think even today they got cleared by like either like a patent or FDA, something for that.
They said they expect FDA approval anytime. So that's a pretty big statement.
Oh, that's awesome. I'd love to see it do something for like people with diabetes that always need to like prick their fingers. Like it'd be really great to not see a finger prick, and maybe you can measure, blood glucose through your skin, through the watch, through the wrist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen things around like disposable sensors, like sensors that last like a couple weeks or something like that. And so like the tech is getting there from what I understand, just not quite 100%. But yeah, I think that's if anybody can figure that out, that is a absolutely enormous market.
Yeah, now what you have for diabetes is something that you have to actually like, it's a needle that is like you have to stick it to your skin.
Yeah.
It's very uncomfortable, but very handy if you have to monitor your glucose levels all the time. But yeah, it would be great if a watch could do that. Sooner or later, we'll get there, I hope.
Pretty sure the last 2 cycles of the Apple Watch, they've talked about that, and it's something that they're working on the development for, but the science behind it is really involved, so it hasn't gotten there yet. So, and something like that does have to be considered a medical device, and so that also takes it to a different level because it can't just be a general release. It has to go fully through the medical procedure in order to be released as a product.
Anything else in the watch you guys saw that was interesting?
Just that this sleep tracking is, it's not that new. Like Garmin had it for years and years, and you could watch it the next day, and it has a battery of like 10 days because the display is different. But it's always like and I had it on and I used it, and it's interesting for the first few weeks, and then you try to change your habits a bit, and then you just get used to it, and then you just take it off, and then it's not going to be like a fundamental change in your life if you have sleep tracking, but it sells you this notion that you are getting healthier at least a bit. But it seems, just one more note, that Apple Watch, like other smartwatches or wearables, they are really doubling down on health. Because that's what basically it's the best for, other than just showing the time. So for running, workouts, sleeping, heartbeat, heart rate, it's all in now.
Yeah,
Yes,
they put the
now
medication
medication
stuff. Yeah.
So it's
I thought
like
the
really
medication was
helpful.
great.
I missed the medication part. What did they say about that?
They had like these like notifications for like you could put in your schedule when you're supposed to take certain pills, and then it would remind you. And then it had like handy reminders like, don't mix this with alcohol. And then clearly in the next scene, they had some guy just like floating around the room. I guess he chose to ignore those notifications, but Looks like a handy feature. You know, I wonder if like they start combining like some areas where they have like the AFib and now they have the notifications and then they have the exercise. Does that start closing in on like, you know, maybe like predicting like other types of things like maybe like dementia or, you know, forgetfulness or things like that as well?
Well, and I was curious, like I'm not a runner, but watching what they talked about with the running and like the way that they're taking the different ratings of like vertical movement and horizontal movement at the same time, and then calculating out when you should rest. So like when you're pushing yourself, if your heart rate isn't up high enough that you should push harder, or when it's too hard, how you should slow back down. As a non-runner, that seems like pretty cool tech. But I don't know, maybe other apps already have that built into it and I'm just missing it. Like I know Whoop has, but I don't know about many of the other companies out there. And Whoop is its own wearable. So, I mean, that's kind of different.
I wonder too, the sharing for the medication thing, if it's something they're going to be offering. Looking on Apple's website, I'm not 100% sure if there's an alert, such if you have an elderly person that's supposed to be taking medication and they miss it. Is it going to be something that they have to click like I took it, or if it's just something that they're going to do like that?
Or I wonder if you could alert a third party. That'd be interesting too. Yeah. Like let your kid know you didn't take your medication.
Yeah,
or your
I think
parent.
there's products out there attempting to do that. I'm not sure what they are though.
Yeah, I thought on the medical stuff, I thought the drug to drug interactions, they kind of spend a little bit of time on there too. So like if you had previously entered in a drug, kind of similar to what you're talking about with alcohol, you know, notifying you like don't take, you know, maybe antibiotics because they'll be less effective, you know, with alcohol or something. But I thought that the drug to drug interaction was interesting too. Is it, hey, I already have this drug in this system that I'm, you know, taking. Now I have this other one. These are the common issues with maybe taking both of them together. I thought that was interesting, but also I'm trying to think of a scenario where that might happen, where you're visiting your doctor and your doctor doesn't already know that, but it is interesting to see, you know, that they can put that in there for those capabilities.
It's also very interesting. I don't know if you guys know the company they're using for that. It's called Elsevier. They're the company they use for the health app. It's based out of in the Netherlands, and it's a pretty cool company. And they're like the leading in the health app stuff. If it's very cool to see what they're doing and how they're doing it, and like how they're not well known, but they're still the silent people in the background who like really crush that.
Yeah, it's really cool. It seems like they're really setting the stage. Oh, sorry.
I wonder if they pair that in the future with like some of the shipping and like the Shopify sort of integrations that they had, where it's like, here's your meds, they're coming, or they're available at the pharmacy. And maybe there's like another network there for like healthcare notifications and like you sort of getting those updates, you know, in a reasonable time.
Yeah, it does seem like they're kind of setting the stage. It seems like they're like laying the foundation for a lot of other things that they could be using this for. That's for sure.
In true Apple form.
the truest Apple form.
Need them to buy something else, guys. I mean, come on.
With the running stuff, I thought that was really nice to see, because presumably you just buy the hardware and then you have access to that software without a subscription, right? And you have other companies or, you know, other apps, you know, that you would pay a subscription for to be able to do that. So even just like the accessibility of you buy this, you can start changing your fitness and you don't need anything else. And even if it may be like prescribed like some basic cardio to you, or maybe it knew based on your heart that you're training too hard or you're not training hard enough, then it can kind of almost gives you like a fitness plan or something out of the box, which honestly is great, especially with, you know, how much everyone drives here in the States and not really being fit.
As we all
it's like
see from our office chairs.
It's interesting too, because I'm excited for this quick actions feature, because I turned off on my Apple Watch the feature where you click on the side and it pauses your workout, because when I'm lifting weights and I'm doing this, it's literally pressing the button and then like you don't realize it paused it. So I'm very interested to see if this quick actions resolve that issue, because I know like everyone I know that actually lifts weights turn that feature off because they're like, I just can't do it, or they flip their watch backwards. But then it's like weird, you know. So that's like one of those first world problem features that hopefully gets fixed with the
I-
new.
I think this happens all the time if you do yoga too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like if you're like
Anything.
Anything.
rubbing your wrist
Yeah.
to anywhere, it just stops everything all the time.
I do hit constantly and it does the same thing. You do push-ups or burpees or any of the above and it pauses it.
Anything else on the watch side? Because I'm curious of what you guys thought about Mac OS 13. So Ventura.
It's Ventura, right?
Ventura.
Mustafa? It's like an hour
Yes.
away from you or something.
Oh no, Ventura's 4 hours
4?
away. North LA. I was just there actually.
Oh.
And it's just gonna start a whole new set of memes with Ace Ventura all around.
As it should.
I'm actually very interested with the watch itself with the reminders app. It's very interesting because I do feel like personally, at least in my circle, no one uses it. And I'm very interested on why Apple is updating it and pushing it harder. So if they're going to make it to where people will use it more, because the reminders app is very useful. Don't get me wrong, but it's like, what's the difference of using a calendar notification versus a reminders app versus, or an alarm clock?
Yeah.
So I'm very interested to see how, because they keep pushing it. So obviously it's not going away anytime soon.
So reminders actually has a lot of really cool functionality that people don't typically use because you can have it remind you when you're around somebody. You can have it remind you when you get to a location. You can have it remind you after an event on your calendar. You can have it remind you at a certain time of the day. And like all of those are things that most people don't automatically build into using it. But if you have like an iPad or if you have like one of the home pods, you can say that in a conditional way to any of it and it will sync across all your devices. So when you have your watch on and you go to the store, it'll notify you, remember to pick up this because you're at the store. And you said, remind me when I go to Kroger to pick this up, and it will actually do that. So there's already some pretty cool functionality in it, but most people haven't explored it in order to know how it works properly.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I think in the like kind of the Mac OS 13 stuff, there was a lot on like Stage Manager stuff too. There's quite a bit of emphasis on Stage Manager. And I think, with the whole Stage Manager and kind of almost with things like multi-device support, because it kind of bled into that a little bit too, that seems to be a pretty common theme, not only with Apple, but other companies that have big conferences, we won't say as well. The whole multi-device theme seems to be pretty large, seems to be quite a bit of emphasis on there. I mean, they went through like Spotlight changes, Mail app, Safari, but I think the most interesting for me were things like the continuity camera, the kind of the multi-device experience, like the more specifically like that desk view, I thought was really interesting, being able to take advantage of the wide angle camera while you're actually using your iPhone, like we're kind of joking with the old iPhone as your webcam, but then also using the wide angle to capture something else somewhere else. Yeah, so that, I don't know, what are you guys' thoughts on that? I feel like that's a joke as well, waiting to happen.
I don't know, I like using the iPhone as the camera because I have like an older MacBook Pro and the camera on it sucks, to be honest with you. So it's like I was shocked when I got this M1 book and I was like, oh my God, like I gotta get better lighting or something. Like I look terrible on this thing.
What I'm interested about is if you can change the placement of the camera itself. So that's something that I don't think many people think of, but the camera placement happens because you have to put a camera in the bezel of whatever it is that you're looking at. So whether it be your standard desktop or your laptop, it just happens there because it's there. There's space there, right? On a laptop, nobody wants to look down and see a photo of themselves. That's a terrible option. But if you have a phone and you have the ability to change where that is, like for a world that we live in now, which is mostly remote, that could be a pretty big thing. Like, obviously, I'm someone who spends some time trying to make sure things are dialed in on the way that I approach things on a video call. And so for me, like, an iPhone has a much better camera than like 99% of webcams out there. And unless I want to go the route of getting something like a Fujifilm or a Sony or some kind of a mirrorless camera to upgrade what the quality is going to be, it's going to be what it is. And that's the best I can make it. But having the ability to throw your phone up there and have like whatever their megapixel camera count is now. I don't even know. The things are ridiculous.
Yeah.
But to be able to do that and have it actually look good and have it like where you can frame it and you can zoom in and out and get it right where you want it to be, like I think that's going to be a really huge thing for them. It is a little gimmicky for the fact that like I see it where they're just going to stop putting cameras in their computers because then you have it on your phone and everybody has an iPhone, right? So why would I need to put a camera on your computer anymore? So yeah, but that also played into the passphrases thing, which I think is going to be interesting because what they showed is you go to a third-party application that's not worked through Apple and you do one of the QR codes like you do for two-factor authentication now, and it allows you to do a passcode, which then you could use your own camera on your phone to do facial recognition to allow you into a site for a third-party vendor, which seems like it could be really intriguing if that actually works that way. But it continues to just push you back towards that iPhone, like iPhone focus, even on your computer, on whatever computer you're on. It was like everything they did with the new OS was constantly trying to push you back to an iPhone, which I found really intriguing because
Yeah.
odds are good that's their best market share and their best margin. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
People update them more frequently too, though.
Mhm.
You know, like I get an iPhone pretty much every year, but my MacBook, my personal machine, I've had for like 5, and I don't see a reason to upgrade it still, even though the M1s are sick. Like it still works just fine, you know?
Yep.
Mhm. I think my favorite thing with the new OS that they like, I don't even they like lightly touch, but kind of just went over, but I think is bigger than it actually than they realize. Well, they probably do realize it, is the rapid security response. How you don't need to restart a Mac anymore to push a security software update.
Oh, that is big. I didn't see that.
That is like, I mean, coming from back in the day when I used to work in IT, that was the most frustrating thing as a company, having to have everybody, especially everyone working remote now, you know? So that's tougher to make everyone do, to restart their computer because no one really restarts their computer as much. But
Right.
having able to keep up the security without a reboot is going to be, I mean, changing. Like that's huge, huge.
Cameras again. I also think like, aren't the cameras like really thick now too? So I wonder if maybe that's why they couldn't put the upgraded cameras into the bezel, because then it wouldn't be as compact.
So I'll continue to be a little bit of a nerd on this, and I'm sorry, but my wife is a photographer, and I used to be a photographer as well. And so when it comes to cameras, you can't actually shrink them and continue to have good quality. So the majority of the time, your camera is only as good as the glass that it takes a photo through. And so if your lens isn't good, your camera is not going to be good. And so as Apple has developed their cameras inside of their phones, that's why they've gotten deeper and deeper and stuck out the back. Is because they started putting better glass in there and getting rid of plastic. And so that's happened a lot. And then like now we're trying to smash it inside of an iPad or inside of a screen. And you're looking at like 2 millimeters that they have to try and somehow put a camera in there. And so it's a mixture of a large sensor is what you want, because that makes it so that it can absorb light easier, so that you aren't getting static included in the photo. So static is essentially the electronic field that is being shot across that chip at any given time. And so as that light is trying to be absorbed into that, if you give it a larger surface area, you're going to get less static. And then also the quality of glass that you shoot through. So having it where they're taking it outside of trying to make it smaller is going to be really big for them, because it does just improve the overall quality of what they can provide. So yes.
That's awesome.
Sorry, that was a long explanation.
No, that was an awesome explanation. That was awesome, man.
I also wonder if dangling your iPhone, off the back of your monitor is also going to somehow increase your iPhone sales as they smash and fall off as you bump the table. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
That is the truest thing, because at Apple, they always say we're not protecting the phone from natural disaster, we're protecting it from you, from the user. The user is the biggest thing versus you spilling it in water. There's a less likely chance of you dropping it in water or something. Another cool thing I'm very interested in is the recall a message.
Oh yeah.
That is huge, and I'm very interested. Is there like a 10-second delay? Does that mean that there's gonna be a 5-second delay? How do you know? Like, because right now the way you do it is if it doesn't say delivered, you just go in airplane mode and then it stops the message to send, or just like a workaround. So I'm very interested to see like how this is gonna work. Like yeah, I don't know. It's going to be very intriguing to be able to edit it. So that means what if your phone isn't up to date or product isn't up to date in general? Will you see the edit or I can't edit it unless you're working on the same platform as me?
Oh man, and Android users will just get a message say Michael edited a message.
Yeah, and it'll show it'll show the original message and the edited message.
Yeah.
That's probably true though. I mean, yeah, that's probably exactly how it's going to work.
Yeah.
What a
So it's like it says here you can edit or recall a message for up to 15 minutes after sending it, or recover recently deleted messages for 30 days.
Oh,
So that's very interesting.
editing is so twisted. Like I used to work at a consultancy and we had a client who was like not a great client, and he was notorious for like getting you to say something. Like he kind of like put a message in, get you to say something controversial, and then edit the message to make you look like you're an insane person. Like it was really, really, really bad.
Well, you know what this helps a lot actually on the back end for Apple is the Apple 30. Is that what called? Apple the iCloud. To store, because right now your messages sync up and they store in your iCloud. So if now everything's going to be editing and storing for 30 days, it's gonna, I don't know how that's gonna affect. I think it's a back end process of like, hey, now you're gonna have to upgrade your iCloud, or you're gonna have to make storage somehow to do
you can
that as
adjust
well.
that right now, right? You can
Yeah.
change that so that it never deletes. It deletes after 30 days. It deletes after 10 or 5 or something.
But that's on the local device.
Is that only local? That's not,
only local.
okay.
On iCloud, it's only syncing up between devices. This is so, I mean, I'm assuming this is gonna have to store it in iCloud to be able to do this exact feature.
I just wonder about the social norms that are going to change now. You can edit, you can send a read receipt, but then you can also mark it unread. So now everyone's just gonna be like, wait, what did they say? When did they say it? They said something, but they didn't reply. You know, and it's like, well, I didn't get the notification, but I mixed my drugs and my alcohol again. So it's like, what are we doing? Yeah.
Yeah. And your watch will tell them that, but
yeah.
It's very interesting how with Safari, I'm seeing here on Apple's website, they tested it on with PC systems that are i7 with a NVIDIA 350 Ti laptop GPU and Windows 11 Home, and their performance benchmark, it says here. So I'm wondering if that's the base for PCs or not.
that's interesting.
That's what
low-end PC, if that's the case for things. But I also thought it was interesting that they went through and like revamped a bunch of stuff on the Home app. I think that's going to be interesting to see.
Yes.
They introduced Matter, which is been coming. It's a little questionable because Matter is essentially like a direct competitor to Thread, which just also recently came out. And so Matter's supposed to be the new standardized home OS platform or communication method, I guess. So that will be interesting just to see how that plays out.
I agree. Home is huge. It's just blowing up like crazy. Like I use HomeKit very heavily without subconsciously even realizing that I use it. Yeah. Like all my lights, my lock, even if I'm not using it, it's being used because I set it up to auto lock when I leave the house. Like, and, you know, it's a very sleeper specific program on the phone that people just don't realize they use way more than they actually do.
Well, and I'm curious because they said updated architecture, which means who knows what. It's basically the whole underlying framework they're saying is changing, which is a little terrifying because already they're working with third-party companies who honestly suck at writing these a lot of the time. Like you work with those platforms and half the time they don't function. Like half the time you hit the button and it comes up with a little thing and you got to try it again and it finally works. So if it actually works, that's going to be pretty cool, but it makes me curious just what that underlying framework is that's changing in order to make it work or not. So
I thought it was interesting how they said they were going to revamp how it worked across networks, especially with like multiple devices. Because I think once you go past like 8 or 10 devices, you're almost DDoSing your home router, which is why people have a separate network for their HomeKit setup as well. So, but then the problem there is if your phone's not on that network and you don't have it set for remote, you actually can't toggle any of your devices with HomeKit. So I wonder if they'll kind of like bridge that automatically without you needing to have like a in-house like Mac Mini or an iPad setup to allow for that remote access to your HomeKit.
So that's what Matter is supposed to be. So right now, Thread was the rest of the industry's answer to that, which essentially it created like its own mesh network. So the devices would start communicating with themselves if they were thread enabled. So instead of always going back to your router, they would cross link and work as an Internet of Things device. And so I believe that that's the idea behind it, is that Matter's going to function in the same kind of way to reduce the load off of your router and make it so that they depend on each other more, and also extend the reach. So say you have a light switch at the back of your house and your router's at the front of the house, it would bounce to the light switch, and then that light switch could bounce even farther in the back of your house, or past the back of your house, to allow things to connect farther away. So that's supposed to be the idea of what Matter is bringing around to things, but I don't know how that directly compares to Thread, but that is exactly how Thread works, and so I don't know. I haven't seen the comparison of the two so far.
I think that's great, because like most of these companies like Lutron and like Blink cameras, they come with their own sort of like hub that you then need to configure. But then already you also need a mesh network. So maybe you have like an Eero setup in your home as well. So it's like you already have all these meshes, but the meshes don't have a standard, or maybe they do, but they're not talking to each other. So there's just mesh on top of mesh, which probably contributes to a lot of signal noise as well, which just makes everything not work optimally.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm very interested in that whole side of things. I think that's why ahead of this, I posted in the channel that I've been reading about people talking about Apple coming out with their own hardware again for Wi-Fi's. And it wouldn't surprise me if when Matter officially becomes available, because right now, if you look on the site, it says coming later this year, that potentially could be when you see that. Because now that Wi-Fi 6E is here and Matter's going to be here, it does fundamentally change the architecture of how you're going to do routing. So if you're using Wi-Fi 6, typically you're still using a 2-signal back and forth. So you got 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, whereas the next one is a 6 gigahertz, I want to say. So it's a totally different bandwidth for signal to travel on. And so it wouldn't surprise me if they start relocating like home networking stuff for your smart home to some of the older bandwidths and using the newer ones for optimized like data transfer. But that's just me guessing.
Well, if they brought back the headphone jack, there's no reason why they can't bring back Airport Extreme or something like that, right?
Here's
true. I was reading also, since obviously they didn't announce a car per every year, and then they actually like let go the entire car team a couple years ago, so they don't have a car team at the moment publicly. But there's a big theory of them buying one of the major car companies, waiting for one to drop a little bit, like financially. Like Ford, I think I saw this morning, was like worth 260 billion or something. So like obviously they're not going to buy that, but it's very interesting to see because Apple is also making a buy at EA Electronics. A couple of companies tried to buy them, but the controversy is the CEO will not step down, he said, no matter what the sale is. And so a couple of companies have already pulled out, because that's, the whole point is they don't want the CEO. So Apple's going to make a buy at them. They're making them an offer, they said, by end of summer. So that'll be very interesting to see for gaming if that happens. I know it's so funny that they're so into gaming, yet it's just like, I mean, Nate, you're a gamer. You probably know this. Like it's you can't play a game on a Mac. It's so hard.
They don't even support over 60 hertz. Like
I
everything
know,
is 60 hertz, and that's it. And it's like you don't game on 60 hertz.
They're actually it seems like they're going towards a specific clientele of gaming, kids. Like someone like us who game, I'm not going to game on that. Like, it's very.
I think that's the general theme. Like even with the workout is what's going to play to the middle. So a kid is going to need an iPad just as much as they're going to need, a watch or something that's a little bit less intensive. So don't go after, the specialty market at all.
I really wondered too if that new Freeform app is going to put a dent in Microsoft Word and Google Docs. That I don't know if you guys remember that part, but the Freeform app, it's coming out later this year. Yeah. It's a collaborative whiteboard app that lets people work on a document at the same time. It's the same thing as we do right now via all these other things. So I think a big thing is they're just trying to make a continuity all throughout, so you don't have to leave the Apple ecosystem, which is fine. I just wonder how smooth it's going to be able to like drop in and things like that.
That is interesting. Like maybe that's where passwordless actually starts to make sense, because no one wants to have all these counts. So you might as well make it really seamless to transition, because everyone's probably in Google. How do you pull them out of there and, you know, connect your grandma over Facebook or FaceTime, right, to your photo library?
Was that one too that they introduced an API to be able to, was it, no, maybe it was the collaboration API that I'm thinking of, because that was another one where I thought they introduced like the ability then to work within apps and different devices and be able to collaborate, because that part would be interesting too, to see, you know, obviously within the Apple ecosystem, but then, you know, how you could take advantage of it from an app perspective, and be able to.
Is that Stage Manager you're talking about? Was that what the one they talked about today?
Stage Manager you don't share though. Stage Manager is the sorting the screen so that it makes
Okay. It was like share sheet stuff through the collaboration. I think is collaboration its own app as well through share sheet. I got confused whenever they were in that part because I wasn't as familiar on that. I have an iPad, but it's exclusively used by my toddler. So
right here,
like,
it says collaboration lets two people work easily on documents together from iPads. Users can message one another or start a FaceTime to call or discuss what they're working on. You can also see which tabs the user is working on. So,
oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's what. Oh, that was the thing where they showed the little tab and it showed how many people were on it, like they do in like Google Sheets. That's interesting.
Yeah, I guess I get it from a document perspective, but seeing which tab people are on,
it's so creepy. It's so creepy.
It's weird. And then you could click on it and just share in a message like straight from it. That seemed really strange to me. Like, I think we sometimes take collaboration a little too far. I mean, I'm not trying to be weird about that, but like, we go home to go home, not to continually be with everyone else. And I think that
so true.
Sometimes tech companies don't understand that. They're like, we always want to be around each other. What are you talking about? It's great. It's like, not really. Like, I kind of like my own space sometimes. I'm an extrovert, but I need my own space sometimes.
Yeah. I'm also very interested to see what Safety Check does. How, like, they didn't really talk a lot about like the details. I mean, a couple of details, but like not in depth, because from what it says is it enables users to quickly turn off all services and apps being shared with the user's family, like their location or whether a user's texts go to another device aside from their phone. So is that saying anyone on my family, because I do family sharing, anyone on my family sharing, I can turn off text features so they can't text anybody but me?
No.
That's
That's
the way I'm
right
reading.
now you have handoff. So handoff goes to every one of your devices. So I have it on my house. I have it on my iPad, my personal computer, my work computer, my phone. Like, so I get one text message and it goes to everything. So you could quickly adjust that so that it only goes to your phone instead of to everything. Because right now that is a pretty big security issue if you're gone, because some people don't go in and adjust their security settings so that it doesn't display it on the lock screen. And so a lot of the time, if you're getting text messages, your iPad may be displaying your text message in a fully readable form on your iPad, because you haven't flagged it to say only show the text message when it's unlocked. And so that would protect you against that.
That makes sense. Because literally the next line here says Apple says the feature is designed in partnership with women's groups and is designed to make it easier to stay private and protect personal data and safety when leaving a relationship. And that's like, okay, that's exactly what you're talking about.
I really appreciate these measures. So like there are situations when women or anybody else need all the help they can get. And maybe some people wouldn't think about how their devices might not help them getting away. And then if you know about this and you can just pull the plug, that's excellent. So I really, really appreciate this.
Something else that's really cool. I want all your takes on this. The Apple Pay Later.
Dude.
Affirm stock went down 6% when they announced it, they said this morning. They say like the firm's in a lot of trouble. So I'm very interested. So like I use Apple Pay a lot. So I guess from my understanding, if no matter what card, my Capital One, Visa, Discover, whatever card you have, American Express, anything, is it saying if I use Apple Pay, it'll automatically split the payments on my card? Or is it going to charge my card fully and I'm paying Apple?
I couldn't figure it out either. I don't really know.
Yeah, because that's here's a good article from TechCrunch. It's very interesting because
that's going to encroach on a lot of different industries, because like banks right now, say you want to accept payment and you're at, I don't know, some kind of like a maker fair or something, right? You have to have a device that hooks up to your phone or hooks up to its own internet in order to be able to take payment, because it has to be PCI compliant. Well, if you already have your iPhone, which is PCI compliant already due to Apple Pay and the different security measures that are in place, instantly you don't have to pay your $200 membership per month in order to use a credit card reader on site. You can just tap to pay wherever you are. That's going to be huge for them. That's going to be huge for like Box or any of those companies that are for currency transfer, because allowing that NFC ability, that's going to be big.
Well, it's interesting too, because they're using Goldman Sachs as the credit check person. And I don't know if you guys remember when the Apple Card first came out, it was actually tough to get it for a little bit, because Goldman Sachs has one of the toughest application processes, especially credit-wise, checking, all that stuff. But then they're like someone like Afterpay, they got sued in California in December because they never had a license in the state of California, apparently. Which is pretty interesting for such a big company to like make that not happen. But someone, like they're saying as of May 31st, Affirm stock was down 70%. Klarna was laid off 10%. So a lot of these people are like joining, like Amazon signed up with Afterpay. Was it Afterpay? Yeah, Amazon signed up with Affirm last year as a contract to do the payments. So we're doing Goldman Sachs, but it's just a very interesting of like, how does that work payment wise? Or do you not get charged on the card until you've made all your payments with Goldman Sachs? And then you get the credit card statement 6 months later or something on there. It's, I don't know, because then that defies things into, there are tons of cards where, you know, an American Express, you buy something like an iPhone on it, it gives you an extra year of warranty. Technically you bought it, let's say January 1st, but you did that Afterpay stuff and you're not technically you're not paying it off until, let's say 6 months, you choose your terms, and then it charges your card after that. So then how does that work warranty wise? So I don't know, there's a lot of questions on this. So there's a lot in the TechCrunch here about it. It's very,
it was interesting to see them not jump on the crypto wagon either, right? So like in this winter where everyone's talking about Bitcoin this, Bitcoin that, how easy would it have been then for them to just say like send 5 Bitcoin via Apple or something like that? But they're still not kind of jumping in there.
I think in general, the NFC technology aspect of what they were announcing is pretty huge as well. Having the ability to get your like hotel room key on your phone, or have it where you can now get like an encrypted key on your phone that has some kind of a temporary like lifespan. That just hasn't happened previously. Now, Android has been doing that for a long time, or had the ability to do that for a long time. However, it hasn't been widely adopted in a lot of places because like Apple didn't. That's why like most of your ticketing systems for airplanes and stuff still use barcodes. It's because it's not actually been available for Apple. But now seeing that, it wouldn't surprise me if they move it to an NFC kind of a thing where odds are good you'll have to unlock your phone, you'll have to approve it with Face ID, and then it's going to turn on the NFC chip so that way you can scan it. So you do actually get that kind of passcode verification before using it, so that it's not something that can just be taken or used by somebody else.
And it's interesting too with I don't know if you guys use the app Shop. It like tracks a lot of your stuff. It scans your email and tracks your
Shopify, right? Their app.
Yeah. And then Apple also announced, it was like kind of a silent thing. They didn't really announce it, I don't think. It's on their website, which is funny. They're going to be, through the Apple Wallet, be able to track all your packages.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, they didn't announce it. And after all these announcements, I always like Google, what did they not announce that they still released on their website? But they said that'll be coming later this year. And that's going to hurt people like Shop who, thrive on that kind of thing, specifically of helping do that. But that's only, they do everyone, Amazon, everybody like that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But I just want to know like how the whole payment thing works. But it looks like Shopify will be the first. Says Apple's integrating order tracking directly into the wallet app, and Shopify is the first partner later this year.
So it is just like Shop because it's their program integration. Interesting.
But it's really weird because Apple Pay switched from, was it Discover to Visa 2 months ago? When you pay with Apple Pay, you pay with Visa now. So I wonder how that affects everything too. Because I don't know if you guys know, Apple Pay has been down like worldwide. Like if you go to any store here, there's just signs on their thing that say like, you can't use specific cards for Apple Pay in certain areas. It's very interesting because there's something, when they made the switch, something like happened, didn't like go all the way through or something like that.
That has not been the case out here, but I don't know.
But it's crazy to see all, I mean, do you guys know, was it Fleetwood? The
yeah, definitely Fleetwood Mac.
Not Fleetwood Mac. It was the company that Apple bought, Fleetsmith. So Apple bought them about 2 years ago to compete with Jamf and Adigy as their own MDN for small business. And they just announced like 2 months ago that they're sunsetting it to do something different that they'll be announcing later this year. So they bought the company. They're like, oh, okay, no. And then they just discontinued it. It says here April 22nd. So there's like a lot of like moving parts happening, I feel like right now with them. Can imagine Tim Cook just like back to back calls like, okay, what do we got now, guys?
Everything is getting integrated. I mean, it's just crazy to look at it all and see how you can check anything from anywhere. I mean, I don't know.
Oh, I just found the answer to your question, Michael, from earlier. Not question, but your statement about the SMS. The editing feature is not available with any Android user. So if they're in a group text, that editing feature won't be available.
Just more
That's gonna
reasons
be a
to
bummer.
shun the green bubble.
Yeah, it says, it cannot be an SMS text, must be an iMessage.
Yep.
So you know how sometimes you're like out in the middle of nowhere and then you send an SMS because you don't get iMessage.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you'll be able
Exactly.
to. I do like the snooze text, so you can hand them later. Now no one can use an excuse. I saw your text, but I forgot to text back. Like, no, snooze it now.
Oh, that is nice.
I do that all the time. So yeah, that's a pretty nice feature.
You look at it and you like responded in your mind.
Yeah. Like, oops.
It's interesting too because I am actually excited for with iOS 16 the widgets because right now I just go down to my control panel and do everything, but it'll be, I guess that's just one less step to have to do,
Is it just going to be on the front of the camera or on the front of the phone?
At the top right under your clock.
I missed the first half hour because Mustafa and I both had a call we were on. It was a real bummer, but it is what it is. So you can customize texts now? What? And
you can edit text and recall text.
And you can hide your clock behind a part of your image? That's really interesting.
The new iCloud library is going to be interesting too. So does that mean shared albums are going away?
I doubt the shared albums will go away, but it says you can do shared libraries now.
I don't want to share my library with my family and friends. I have screenshots of like Amazon barcodes and 100 photos of my dog doing dumb things.
Dude, I got so many dumb screenshots on my phone that are accidental. And I'm like, can you imagine? Like, I would feel so bad if someone felt obligated to flip through that. It's like, yeah, don't mind that. I don't even know what that is.
Can we also talk about the slow-mo run that happened at the end? That's like almost when I tuned in. I was like, wait, I thought my computer was like, I was like, oh, my Chrome is like crashing. I was like, wait, no, this is real.
I literally just posted
And
the channel.
that
What
tracksuit.
the hell?
And that tracksuit, I want that tracksuit.
yeah.
That was excellent.
He practiced that so many times too.
Oh,
my
yeah.
gosh.
I just like to believe that like Craig comes up with all that stuff himself and he's like, I need a slow-mo run where I fix my hair, you know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah, I like, we get it, dude. You have a full head of hair. It must be nice, dude.
yeah,
It must
right,
be nice
exactly.
over here.
It is.
I do like the new focus feature too. Nate and I talk about this all the time of how you can put different notifications for work. You want to, after like, you know, office hours, you want to turn off notifications for work. So you're not always, especially like we were literally just this morning in our customer success morning meeting talking about how when we're on vacation, just naturally we're like, oh, I want to check, make sure all my stuff is okay, my clients are okay, and you know, you just want to actually make sure everyone's taken care of. So this focus feature is going to be really cool to
Yeah, I didn't see
really
that.
break
They
down.
updated it. Is that what it is? So it's easier to select
Yeah.
things in focus now?
It's going to be like a little more granular and things like that. Like you can add specific emails, I think, and things like email addresses and
Because right now
apps.
it's, in my opinion, too granular, and so it takes too long to set up. So you go through and you have to
Um,
manually select what can come through and what kind of notification can come through for each thing, which drives me nuts. Like it just seems really excessive for what you need.
No.
So I'm curious how they like simplified it. That'll be interesting to see.
Thanks very much, guys, for joining. This has been a really awesome conversation. It's always nice, I think, to bring everybody together, and you know, you've got a lot more insight to stuff on you know, some of the internals and some of the decisions. And it sounds like you've already done some of the research on what they didn't say. So reading between the lines is a really good thing as well. So, Anana, thank you very much. Yeah, this has been awesome.
Yeah.
Well, see you later, guys.
Adios, guys.
See you guys.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Bye.